Welcome to Leadership Legacy Radio, where we inspire you to live your dreams, encourage you to take massive action, and be your authentic and genuine self. We focus on 3 pillars. That's empowering youth, equipping leaders, and enriching marriages so that you can go out and dominate your space.
If you're ready to dominate, you're listening to the right show. This is the Leadership Legacy Radio. Now let's go. Let's go.
See you. Let me see if Facebook sees you.
They see you too, I'm sure. Because the live is going.
See you. All right. Let me see if Facebook sees you.
They see you too, I'm sure. Because the live is going.
We don't want to echo. All right, we are live. Excellent. So, what have you guys been up to? Hey, Mom. Hey, Eric. Hey, Robert. Big Unk.
What's up, JD?
Hey, Cowboy. So tonight we're talking about marriage. We're talking about marriage and, really, how do you show up? That's simple, easy, basic. Tell us, how do you show up to your marriage? Tell us, how do you show up to your relationship? Are you showing up and showing out? Do you not show up? Let us know.
That is, that's a good one.
It's a good one.
Speaking of what we've been all doing this week, I have been at a rockin' VBS all week. Our chapel here on base did their VBS this year, Vacation Bible School, and it was amazing. So it's full in every aspect, both spiritually and physically. So I am drained from that this week, but it was definitely fun, definitely a blessing.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So let's talk about the things that you should be doing in your relationship. And how you should show up. So when your wife, husband, spouse is doing something, how do you show up? Right? So let's take, sports or an event or an idea that they have. How do you show up? What am I asking? How does what we've been talking about all week? So we've been talking about influence, right? Mm-hmm. How does influence, play a part in how you show up in your relationship? So, when you support your spouse, right? Mm-hmm. So we'll start with supporting your spouse and how you show up in that manner. Let's say they have an event. So you had VBS this week, right? So, how do I show up when she has that event, making sure that, she's prepared, to go out the door at a certain time, whether she did that on her own and I wasn't a hindrance, or whether I support her when she comes home. Mm-hmm. Because most of the time what tends to happen is we think that support means you have to be there. Well, that is a great thing to do. Mm-hmm. But if that's not your lane, if that's not what you do, right? Maybe your support is when they come home. Mm-hmm.
It's not for VBS this week, it's not something that I do every single week. There's a once a year event. Yeah. So, this is something that is typically not on my list of things to do, not on my schedule. So, supporting in the capacity of other things that I would typically do in place of that, just help with, stuff around the house that I would typically have more time for. So like you said, just showing up in other ways, not necessarily feeling like you have to be present, at the event, because that's not always possible. That's not always needed or necessary. Like it wasn't necessary or practical, for us, sometimes we have to divide and conquer, with you guys have seen us at different places during lives, me trying to do, lives from, out of town sporting events, or, with Chris being out of town, TDY or anything like that. So you definitely want to make sure that you support as much as possible. But sometimes, it's not possible. It's not practical or necessary. Sometimes, it's necessary for you to divide and conquer, but as much as possible, you support your spouse. So if Chris had like an evening event and it was something that we could all attend, we're all going to go. Yep. We're all going to sit there and support him and show up and show out, because it's encouraging to him to look out in the audience and see his family sitting out
Yep.
there, to see his wife sitting out there, to see his kids sitting out there, that's definitely encouraging to him. Because sometimes, like we talked about before, sometimes you don't get that support from people
Yeah.
at work, from people on the outside. So if nobody else supports me, I know that my family is going to support me. I know that, my wife is going to support me. So I know that, I'll have support. So when I come in the house, you know what? Even if I had a rough day at work, I know that I'm going to come home to a good support system. I know that I'm going to come home to a loving and welcoming home.
Absolutely. And you hit on a few points. So having the support when you come home, having the support at the event.
Right.
And I think that's critically important, because oftentimes what people tend to forget is like, okay, well, they don't need me. They don't need my support.
Yep.
But it's not necessarily about that. It's also on the backside of it, right? So say, for example, I didn't show up, right? I didn't show up to that event. And maybe that was the one event that I could have showed up to. Oftentimes, we also talk about this a lot, the law of reciprocity. If I don't show up to an event that I can, just because I didn't want to, when I have an event, you might feel like, well,
I don't have to.
And what tends to happen is we go back and forth, like, well, you didn't show up to this event. Well, you didn't show up to this event. And you don't want to do that. That goes into competing, right? Competing. So you want to make sure that you do that, because when people see that you support them, they feel valued. They feel like you believe in them.
Yep.
They feel encouraged. They feel inspired. They feel motivated. And that's what we're supposed to do to each other. We're supposed to uplift and inspire each other. Right. And so, thinking about that, one of the things that kind of like continues to stick out is like, there's so many people out there that want people to support them, but don't support anybody else.
You better preach that right there.
I mean, like, you want people to support you.
Yes.
But you don't go and support anybody. Like,
when I do something, I want everybody to show up, everybody to come, and everybody to support me. But when you do something, oh, I'm busy. You understand. I got X, Y, and Z, or I was tired, or I had this going on. We got every excuse in the world when it comes to supporting other people. But when we want support, our expectation is that everybody support us. And sometimes that's all we think about is ourselves. So, definitely with supporting your spouse, you have to make sure that you set aside all of your issues and feelings and emotions. Like, you know what? Regardless of how tired I am from this week, regardless of how much I had to do or anything else, I'm going to support my spouse because they have an event. That's on my list of, priorities.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Not just list of things to do. That's on my list of priorities, supporting my spouse. And oftentimes we have to make sure that everything else kind of goes around that. Sometimes we try to fit in our spouse into our schedule. Oh, you know what? I'm going to get a little bit of, quality time, with my husband, or I'm going to get a little bit of quality time, with my wife when I can, after I've, done all of these different things. And then when you show up, you're not necessarily giving your best. You know what I mean? I'm tired. I'm falling asleep on you. I'm tired.
Preach.
Okay, that's enough. I'm getting a little bit too excited about that one. But yeah, you definitely have to make sure that you prioritize, your relationship, because we talked about this last week. We're all affected by relationships. We are all influenced and affected by relationships. Each and every last one of us are a product of some kind of relationship.
Absolutely.
And it's important that we prioritize that we make our relationships important for a variety of different reasons that, we don't necessarily have to get into today, because we're talking about spousal support right now and influence. So
absolutely. Hey, Stacey. And so, one of the things that I think about, right? So as you continue to support and you continue to do certain things, one of the things that tends to happen is when you support each other, you go further. Yes. Right? You tend to want to do more. You tend to feel encouraged to do more. You tend to like, as you do this together, it's like, okay, like, for example, if we do something, most of the time we prepare ahead of time. And what I'll do is if I'm presenting a presentation, we will practice. You will QC, quality control my stuff. You'll look at the presentation, and then you always tend to pick up some of the things that I may have not seen. So you check my blind spots. You compliment my weaknesses. You highlight my strengths. You balance me. You become a better filter for me.
You're welcome.
And
I'm just kidding.
And so what tends to happen is we become better.
Yeah.
And so, this African proverb says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Yeah. Right? And it's so important because I can think about all the times that I've tried to do something fast and it was, grammatically incorrect, spelling errors, or all these little things that maybe isn't my strength. My strength is on delivery. My strength is on the presentation. But when it comes to the formatting and the different things, the detail, that's your thing, right? That's your strength. And so we, as one of my mentors would always say, we are better together. And so think about that. Think about how you show up, because you go further, you go faster when you get rhythm together. At first, you may slow down because you're trying to feel each other out. You're trying to get these things ironed out. But once you get momentum, it's endless, right? A leader's greatest friend is momentum.
Absolutely.
And so, we talk about spousal support, right? So another thing that you want to know that's super important to your relationship when it comes to influence is respect. Hey, Michael. And respect is so powerful because of what it brings to the relationship, right? So you think about how, communication starts to flow more smoothly when you respect each other. So when we talk, if I know that you don't mean to hurt me, you don't mean anything, you really respect me as a man, you respect me as a woman, you respect me as, an individual. Yeah, you just, no, just respect overall. If I was to be talking about anybody, right? So the man is respected, the woman is respected, you respect that individual. When you show up, it's easy because it's you know what? I know what they're trying to say. They may not say it or articulate it well, but I know what they're trying to say. And then sometimes you're more in tune to say, okay, I know what you're trying to say, but maybe think about how you said it because it seems like it's, coming across this way. Right?
So that's something that you have to practice, right? Yeah. You have to practice communicating with respect. Like you said, sometimes it's not what you say, but how you say it. So that's something that, we have to practice. We have to practice communicating in a way that we're not rushed, where we feel like, because oftentimes we can get impatient with people and we just want to hurry up and, say what we got to say. And you know what? I don't have time for, you this or that to try to put it in a nice way, to put it in, but you need to.
Yes, absolutely.
You definitely,
especially with your spouse.
Especially with your spouse.
Because what tends to happen is we tend to watch what we say around people.
With everybody else.
Right?
I'm not going to go to work fussing people out or getting angry or impatient with them. A lot of times I'm so very nice and careful at how I talk to other people, but we don't give our family, we don't give our spouse that same kind of just care and, respect
and attention
and time.
And when it comes,
that? We're comfortable.
Yeah.
And we feel like, oh, they'll understand. Yeah. I'll be able to make it up. But what happens, when that time comes when you can't make it up? You know what I mean? You're like, oh my gosh, I went to bed at my spouse angry and, something bad happened to them or, whatever the case is. Make every moment count. You know what I mean? You don't want to take for granted. You want to give people their flowers while they're living. You know what I mean? You want to appreciate and value your relationship right now. Every moment that I get to spend with you, I want to make sure that we make every moment count because before you know it, you're going to be, old and you're like, man, we've been married for, 30 years. We didn't enjoy our youth. We had that energy and, we had that time and that patience. So you definitely want to value every moment because time is precious and it waits for no man. That's the only thing that that won't change. It's time.
Absolutely.
We have no control over it. It's going to happen.
Yeah. It's going to happen regardless if you want it to or not. And one of the things that I think about as you were just talking is that oftentimes what we tend to do is we don't appreciate what we have until we lose it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why oftentimes you'll hear people that get divorced say, man, I have a better relationship now than when we were together.
And that's so,
and it's so sad.
That's heartbreaking and that's sad because you see people, they do that. And why do they do that? They put a lot of energy and effort in making this work because guess what? It's going to be messy in this divorce if I don't. we're going to have to split our kids if we can't work this out. I'm going to have to pay a lot of money. It's just everything that I've known, like all the time that I got to spend with my kids, like, if I don't work this out with my spouse, like I'm not going to be able to do that every single week or every single day like I wanted to. So I have to make this work. Otherwise, that's what I'm going to miss out. So at that point, it's super important to them. Why not look at how we can make that work now? Like, why not look at how important that is right now and do my absolute best in making it work? Like, give it a try, make it work. Do absolutely everything that you can as if your life depended on it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like if you
because it truly does though. Your life does depend on it. You know, like everything that you know, everything that you care for goes out the drain when you decide to say, you know what, I'm not gonna fight. Mm-hmm. Your life depends on it. Like your happiness, your true, you know, inspiration is gonna go out the door just because you decided to be selfish. Something to think about. Well, back to respect, right? So, you know, so you communicate better, you listen better. you tend to understand that, like, you know, when you're talking with your spouse, that these things that are being said are, you know, are coming from a place of care. You know, oftentimes I like to tell people, like, you know, even if I'm delivering information that's maybe tough at times, right? I'm saying this because I sincerely and genuinely care for you, because I want to make sure that you understand where I'm coming from. I'm coming from my heart. And then you put the barriers down and people are more willing to listen because they respect that. They respect that you're coming from a place of sincerity. And in turn, that helps you not compete. Because if you think it's me versus you, or it's my way versus your way, or it's got to be the way that I do it, you're going to always compete. And we've talked about this in one of our very first lives where we talked about competing versus striving. You know, like when you compete, it's friction. You're pulling in two different directions. And how do I want to do this? How do you want to do that? But when you stride, when you come together and you start kind of going in the right direction, there's again, that word momentum. You tend to develop, you know, this cohesion, this movement that helps you move in the right direction and go further. Right. And when you get in line with that, when you start going in the same direction, everything seems easy. It's like, okay, along the way, we'll pick these things up to help, but there's nothing that really slows you down because you're moving together in the same direction.
Absolutely. And just competition isn't really healthy in a relationship. Like unless we're playing like a game or something like that, and we're just trying to like, you know, just have fun. Like competition is not healthy in a relationship. No. How, you know,
well, there's a way that it can be, right? Like if you're competing to inspire each other. Okay. Like for example, like, you know, hey, you know, babe, I see that you, you know, you're going for a promotion. You know, I think I should go for a promotion. Like if you're using it in a healthy way, right? As a way to inspire each other. Like, hey,
let's see who can lose the most weight.
You know what I mean? Yeah, you know, like that. But not in a way like you're. I think where the way that you were going is initially like, you know, like I'm better than you. Not that sense.
Or like, you know what? It's a competition. How much money do you make? How much money do I make?
Yeah,
you know
that's
what I mean?
not
like,
healthy.
That can cause like a lot of division. Like especially if like a wife makes more money than her husband, and her husband may feel like, oh my goodness, like I'm not, you know,
less of a man.
I'm less of a man, or I'm not, you know, bringing what I need to the table. I'm not contributing, you know, like I'm supposed to. But honestly, like in a relationship, it's not a competition. No. If you get a win, if you get a promotion, guess what?
We both win.
I'm excited because I get a promotion too. Because when he get that promotion, I get that promotion. You know what I mean? When I get a promotion, you get a promotion.
Absolutely.
Like when you get a win, I get a win. Yeah. Like, and we need to celebrate and get excited, you know, for one another when when we win. Like, we need to be that way for, you know, especially our spouse, but for everybody. You know what I mean? When other people win, we kind of talked about that yesterday.
Yeah.
You know, we were talking about leadership and on your job and stuff like that. Like, genuinely be happy for people when they win.
Yeah, pick them up. And, you know, one of the quotes that I read was from, Franklin Roosevelt. And he had said that competition has been shown to be useful up until a certain point. And no further. And he says, but cooperation, right? But cooperation, which is the thing that we must strive for today, begins where competition leaves off. So when you stop competing, right? Because competition is only healthy to a certain point. So like Sharita was saying, like, going back to the example about, like, you know, us, you know, inspiring each other to, like, hey, you know, maybe you should put in for that promotion. You know, you deserve it. And you know, and, oh, yeah, you should do a promotion as well. Or, hey, who can lose the most weight? Who can, you know, like, you know, get some of these things to help their relationship. But the competition is only good to a certain point because you don't want it to ever be a negative thing.
Right.
But then when you start cooperating together, right? Oh, man, you know, it's so awesome that you got the promotion. I got the promotion. Now let's continue to get better together. Let's continue to grow. Now you're cooperating, right? And that's where the rubber meets the road. When you stop competing and you start cooperating together, you start striving, right? And that's what you want to do in your relationship. And then the last thing that we wanted to talk about is understanding that you want to have support. You want to support your spouse. Spousal support is essential in the way that you show up and influence your relationship. Respect is also essential in how you influence your relationship. And the last part is understanding, right? You have to have understanding. You know, Sharita talks about this a lot. You know, with all I get understanding. You know, it's principles from the most powerful source that you can get any inspiration and principles from, right? And so, you know, when you understand each other, it's evident because the focus goes from me to we. It's no longer about what can I do, how can I get better. It's what can we do? How can we get better?
Right.
How can we take this business to a whole new height? How can, you know, we impact the world? Not how can I?
Yeah. And it's different, you know, with understanding, like, you know, when your spouse has a bad day, you know what I mean? Or if you have a bad day, you know, but if you kind of have that dynamics in your household or in your relationship where you just don't know how that person is going to show up. You talked about showing up. If you don't know how that person is going to show up, like, you may tend to walk around on eggshells. Like, okay, what if, now let me ask you this. What if you had to tell your spouse some bad news? What if your spouse had to tell you some bad news? Would your spouse be fearful or walk around on eggshells? Or would they be comfortable in that peace knowing that my spouse is going to understand where I'm coming from? My spouse is going to understand no matter what. Like, if I have to show up and say, hey, I lost my job today. Is your spouse going to understand? Is your spouse going to be supportive? And is your spouse going to say, hey, you know what? We got this. We lost this job, but guess what? This is just an opportunity for what is supposed to happen. This is just an opportunity for the next big thing, for this door that God is going to open for you. So, you know, don't worry about it. We got this. You know what I mean? Like, is your spouse going to show up? Is your spouse going to support you? Or are you going to be fearful because you don't know what kind of mood your spouse is going to be in? And that's so important.
And you know, when you get to that point of understanding and you focus on the we, not the me, you clearly get to a point where you understand that, like, I can do a lot of things okay, but we do them better when we're together. You know, like, I can come on here and I can do a live and I can be okay. And, you know, Sharita come on here and she can do a live and she'll be, you know, pretty great, right? But when we do it together, it's amazing. You know, it's phenomenal. It goes to a new height because we complement each other. There's things that, you know, she does that I don't do well. And there's things that I do that she may not do necessarily well. Very few things, but, you know, she's pretty awesome. And once you get to that understanding, What'd you say?
I said, what did you just say?
And so, and once you get to that point, you tend to find your sweet spot.
Yep.
And I think when you get to your sweet spot, when you get to that point where you're in that sweet spot, if you stay there long enough, you will surround yourself with people, especially in your household and in your relationship, that will compliment you, right? They're going to be like, you know what? I know that he does really well here. I know I do really well here. And, you basically don't like set boundaries, but you tend to stay in your lane and know like, okay, hey, Sharita's good with the bills. Chris is good with this. Sharita's good with this. Chris is good with this. Hey, Deontay is good with this. Genesis is good with this. Jalen is good with this. And you tend to complement each other so well that you have this balance, you have this rhythm, and things go into it's almost like a running train. Like a train is really hard to start, to get momentum. You can have a pebble in front of a train and it will not move.
Small little pebble. But
get that train moving and the momentum is amazing. A brick wall couldn't stop a train. And so, thinking about that, the question today is, how are you showing up in your relationship? How are you showing up? Are you influencing it the right way? Do you provide your spouse support? Are you respectful, and are you respecting them, and are they respecting you? And how is that influencing your relationship? Like a lot of relationships, have, rough starts, but they can have a beautiful ending because you got to get to that point where you respect each other. And then the understanding, show up in your relationship with understanding, and all that get understanding. Yeah. So support your spouse, respect your spouse, and understand your spouse.
And don't compete with your spouse. If you do, make sure it's definitely in a healthy way. And remember that it's not always going to be perfect. You're not trying to have a perfect relationship, a perfect marriage. You know what I mean? You want to know and learn and grow together and learn how to get through life, get through challenges, get through difficulties, because it's going to happen. Every day of your relationship is not going to be perfect. Somebody is going to wake up and going to have a rough day. Somebody's going to have a rough day at work. Somebody is going to, get bad news one day. And how, like you said, how are you going to show up? How are you going to get through that together? Or are you going to leave your spouse alone to deal with that by themselves because, you having a bad day, I don't want to have nothing to do with you. No, how do I support you through your bad days? How do I support you through difficulties? Because they're going to happen. This life is going to bring challenges and difficulties. And if you're looking for perfection, if you're looking for everything to be perfect in your relationship, then you're going to set yourself up for failure. So learn how to work through challenges, learn how to get through challenges, learn how to support one another in difficult times and how to get through them. That's how you will have a successful relationship, a successful marriage.
Absolutely. That was
pretty good, huh?
Yeah, that was.
You're welcome.
That was spot on. I mean, I don't know how to wrap that up. I mean, like,
I think we can wrap it up.
Right there, right? Yeah. Right there. So, as always, we appreciate you guys, and moving forward, just continue to do that. Listen to what Sharita said, everything that she said,
and everything that Chris said,
and go out and dominate your space.
Thanks for watching.